What is up? What is going on? My name is Arvind Ram Krishna, and welcome to Driven to Draw, where we teach ordinary folks like yourself about being creative and how to be creative and innovative through the very act of drawing. And all it takes is just a pencil. Except for today. Today we're actually going to be using watercolors, so we're going to ditch the pencils for today. Today we're going to be talking about, or we're going to be demonstrating how to paint a rose using watercolors. So it's going to be pretty cool. What you're going to find out while we go through this tutorial is that it's really not about drawing the rose in itself. It's really about sharpening your observational skills. It's about looking at the different kind of color variations and the shifts and things that you see on the petals, and how do you sort of interpret that. What is really key and core into really understanding this stuff is making sure that your foundation is very strong, and that is understanding color, understanding how to mix your colors and how to get the different kinds of shifts. So be sure to stick around. I know you're going to enjoy this. I'm going to start off with the background with just a light wash. It's not, and when I say light wash, once you've saturated your canvas or your watercolor paper with water, that's what you typically need to do to prep up the page so that you don't get a lot of this warping effect. In fact, it'll start off kind of warping, and then you let it settle, and then it'll be okay. So I start off with making sure that I've got a little bit of value in the background, and then I start to and make sure that it's light, and then I start to add a little bit more value. I start adding a little bit more color, but I don't want to be overbearing with it because I really don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. I do know that the foreground, or the rose in itself, is going to be obviously higher in contrast, right? Because you don't want your background to be more. Now, the other thing we want to start off doing is I'm just starting to add very light colors and saturate, make sure that I have a lot of water, and then especially for the petals, and I'm just starting from the inside, and I'm treating each petal differently. And more or less, I'm just going to increase the value again. So where I see a color shift or a change in value, where I want to show the form of the petal, is where I'm going to add more value to it. Okay. And all I'm doing here is just dabbing the watercolor, and this is going to happen where it starts to kind of collect at the bottom. I start to draw that color right through it. Roses, or even any kind of flower, is interesting. Some people say, well, I don't like drawing roses and I don't like drawing flowers because it's not my thing. And I think people are really missing out, because the intent is, again, for you to observe. Because when you become an illustrator, you should be able to learn how to draw anything. And if you're just creating in general, it doesn't matter what you're creating. The subject matter really doesn't even matter at all. What you're trying to do is sharpen your observation skills. You're trying to sharpen how your mind interprets form and interprets reality. And that's kind of like the precursor to designing your own stuff, because you still haven't developed that visual, or that visual vocabulary in your head. So these exercises where you go outside and just observe nature and observe the beauty that nature has to offer, it's really, really important to get that into your head. It really is. It's not about the subject. It's not about, I know you've seen a lot with drawing cool cars and things that I've done there in the past, but that's why we're making this shift, because there's more to creativity than just working on the very subject that you love when it comes to drawing or art or creativity. You have to broaden your perspective, broaden your horizons, and think of things differently. And the only way to do that is to get out of your comfort zone and to draw things that you're not really used to doing or drawing. And for me, I don't do a lot of watercolors, to be honest with you. But I think there's a lot to be said that once you learn certain principles, that you can still take these principles across to other areas and other avenues. Okay, so I'm going to again start to increase value. I'm just repeating that same process. So when you look at the photo reference here, you see how the gradation of the petals, just to describe the formation of the petal, the rose petal, and then how to kind of blend these colors all together. Again, I'm not an expert, by the way, in watercolors, okay? This is just one of those moments where I just said, I want to just practice. I want to do something a little bit different. I want to explore, and this is myself, just me exploring a different avenue and getting into things that I haven't done before. And just sort of trying to make sense of even my own thoughts on how I learn and whether the things that I've been teaching are applicable to other areas. So if I'm drawing with markers and showing value changes and shifts, how do I do that with watercolor? Is it really the same principle? Aside from having a knack of mixing the colors, and again, that's about your observational expertise. How well you're able to observe reality and be able to replicate and choose the right kind of colors and blend them and so forth. But once you're able to do that, then you can take those techniques and that skill set and use that across the board for anything. Obviously here you can see that I've just added some more value here for the petal at the bottom, just making it a little bit darker. Continuing to saturate my brush with color, going back and just sort of taking a step back and analyzing where are the darks and where are the lights and where do I need to add a little bit more. And I'm just, the technique here, what I'm doing, you can see I'm just dabbing the brush, dabbing it down onto the watercolor paper. Take a shot from far away. Okay. Now I'm shifting the focus here to the top. You see a lot of, again, this is kind of an interesting pattern when you look at it, and sometimes I struggle to, how do I communicate this with just the shifts in color? So what I decided to do is that as I go through this process, I thought, well, why not just mix the medium and just start looking at bringing in color pencils and things like that to sort of sharpen up edges and bring a little bit more character to it. And that's what I ended up doing. So as we progress through this painting, I'm gonna actually bring in some of my Prismacolor pencils and start to tighten up some of these corners and just bring some more attention to it. And then here I'm just switching my brush. I'm going to a more harder edge where I want to sort of define the sharpness of some of the details, and always make sure you have a wide range of brushes at your disposal, especially when you're starting to paint, because depending on the texture you want or how sharp you want to make certain edges, some brushes are going to aid into that effect. So for instance, here I'm using a flat brush, right? Because the edge, it gives me a nice sharp edge. I can add some details here or just clean up the edge of the stem. If I use a round brush, then it gets a little, it doesn't have the sort of the spring force. It's sort of limp when you use the round brushes, and the round brushes are good for just blotching in color, adding a lot of color in a large area. But here, if I want to do some sort of detail work or something like that, it's easier to go with the flat brush and add that detail in there. Alright, so as you see here, I'm tightening things up now with my color pencil. There's no rules here, not for me. I'm going to use whatever I feel is necessary to communicate visually the intent. So If I want to come in with watercolors to emphasize certain areas or edges or things like that, well, I'm going to do it. There's nothing wrong with combining different kinds of mediums to create an effect or an illusion of some sort. So here I just like to crosshatch in certain areas. You can see I'm just adding more color pencils and just starting to darken the areas up a little bit. I'm using a light fast Prismacolor pencil here. This is definitely where having that previous training with how you control your pencils and your strokes, how that can have a really nice effect. Not saying that this is correct, that this is the only way to do it. It's just one way of doing it, and it's just an experiment. I don't even know if it's really that great or not. It's just fun to explore, and if it didn't come out well, then fine. It didn't come out well. I just try to do something else. So that's it. I think overall the effect is okay. I think it communicated what I intended to do, and hopefully you got something out of this too. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this demonstration, and we'll see you next time on Driven to Draw. Thanks for watching, guys. Today's tutorial is going to be about drawing water. Today's tutorial is about nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because that's exactly what's in my head right now. So if you're enjoying all the content you're seeing so far and you want to learn more about creativity, being creative, then be sure to subscribe. Subscribe. Take it. Learn. Create. Click on it. Subscribe. Do it. Now. Click on it. Click. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe. I tried. Subscribe.